Iran or Saudi Arabia or Pakistan. As I said, these are hardly shining examples of democracy. And is that something that we want to follow? So I will leave it to the audience to think about this. But this is what the G25 stands for, that we want to restore peace and stability, racial harmony in the country. I don't know why we have ruffled feathers. Is calling for moderation suddenly, a bad thing to do? But also from the support that we've received, I am very heartened by the fact that very many thinking Malaysians who are concerned about the direction the country is taking, who have been supporting us.
Good. Some very pertinent points there. I did say to Datuk Farida, first round warm up dulu, tapi dia terus laju masuk. So I was thinking, how do I slow her down a little bit? I can't. Yeah. So anyway, those are some really big issues, and I think you pointed out some a very important point, which is there is a competition to show who is more Malay, who is more Islamic, especially between UMNO and PAS. And I have, I don't know if you know this, but I have been a member of PAS since 1992 for all my sins. So they still retain me. So yeah, there's a lot of conversation that we need to have. But anyway, this competition between UMNO and PAS to show who is more Malay, who is more Islamic, has led to many different ideas being thrown in the public, and I think it's creating a more difficult situation to reform in the way that Razin was suggesting just now. Especially if we need to touch on the remnants of the NEP, the pro-Bumiputra, pro-Malay policies, especially if we need to touch on the role of the GLCs, which is now suddenly seen as the ones protecting the Malay agenda. It's going to be really difficult. I think there is no real political will on that end, on either side. But I don't know, maybe Dr. Sufyan, what do you think? Do you think we need to go ahead and really change the role of government in the economy? What do you think about GLCs in particular?
I have forewarned you not to ask this question.
That's exactly why I asked you the question.
How many minutes?
Okay, this is a big question. Let's go around the bush a bit. I think one of the big issues when we are in the TPPA negotiation, and also coming up if they go on the full speed, the Malaysian EU Free Trade Agreement, and also the next one will be Malaysian EFTA Free Trade Negotiation, is the government procurement chapter. And there's also another chapter on state-owned enterprise. And there's also another chapter which is now the infamous investor-state dispute settlement. So these are three chapters which are interlinked with each other, which brings these new generations of agreements. We have never heard before of government procurement, and if there is a breach of the government procurement chapter, then, or breach of state-owned enterprise chapter, then there will be an initiative or the ability of investors to take the state on the investor-state dispute settlement. So these are the core issues that would probably lead to, the fear of the unknown. This is really a fear of unknown. ISDS is subject to a lot of discussions. In fact, at the end of this month, we are having a meeting in UNCTAD in Geneva about the reform of these investment issues. So my observation about the GLC, I think the intention at the beginning of the GLC, the formation of government-linked companies, it was good intention. But the end of the day, it's not the end yet, but in between, the intention becomes still good, but the implementation has become a bit blurred. And GLC, which is supposed to assist the economy, has become a competitor to, they become competitor to small and medium enterprises, contractors, those who enter into government procurement, and all kind of business. There are a lot of evidence, I do not need to repeat those. So, and people in the GLC, they do not take the risk. Hujung bulan dapat gaji, untung atau rugi doesn't count. Yang count tak dapat bonus. Gaji besar Datuk kata. Okay, I do not know, I'm not involved. But those who are the real entrepreneurs, the government is promoting innovation, innovativeness, entrepreneurship, small and medium enterprises. Yes, on one hand, we are promoting this. We have the ETP, GTP, all well done, very good. We have SME Corp, we have Magic now, yeah? That's why I said we need to observe whether we have the keikhlasan or sincerity. Because on the other hand, we have another creature which is called GLC that competes and kill all these people. If you enter into a government tender, government procurement tender, you have one, this is the paradox. I'm going back to the paradox. The paradox of being a Bumiputra. One Bumiputra company who enters into the bid, or files in the bid for a tender. Then there is another Bumiputra company who is a phantom, not the real Bumiputra, but the GLC, who is by birth is a Bumiputra, enters into the same thing. They have limitless amount of money, deep pocket, fighting with the guy who is probably an entrepreneur who comes from nowhere, no elite background, not an UMNO member, not even pass. Apolitical.
Pas lagi lah, tak dapat.
Tak. Di Kelantan lain. Okay. I take exception there. I'm talking about across the board. If you go to Kelantan, you go to Penang, you go to Selangor, they are all the same creature. They are all politicians. Sorry, wait. So, what happened is this. So you have the fight between the defender, the GLC, who is supposed to be the defender of Bumiputra policy, and the Bumiputra who the defender will kill. So there's a paradox. That's why Bumiputra, the urban Malays, are getting tired. I do not want to say fed up because it's so undiplomatic. It's not that I cannot use the word fed up, but they are tired. And when they are tired, they become frustrated, not fed up. Then they go and look for somewhere else, alternatives. But the alternatives are also getting tired. That is the reality at the moment. So there's a danger of the government getting into business. And if we look at other countries in the region, Thailand is the best example. Thailand has been marvelous. There are events when Thailand do not even have a government, yet the business still run. You just imagine in Malaysia, if one day we do not have a government. No, one day you do not have the government.
Datuk Farida just said it's better.
Yeah, okay.
Try it.
Okay. I do not want to go into there yet. But let's assume one day that we do not have a government for a few months. Belgium has done that. Thailand has done that. Yet they still have businesses running. Because there's no representative of political parties on the board of the directors of the companies. And they just move on. And Thai companies are now becoming major investors. They are exporting capital. Who are our exporters of capital from Malaysia? Few conglomerates plus GLCs. But we want new innovation. We want people who come from the street, people who believe that they can do it. But there is still barrier to entry. This is the problem. You speak about liberalization in the global circle. We talk about liberalization within our own circle. This is the problem. How do we liberalize our own domestic economy domestically before we can even liberalize for others to come in? So there are two barriers. One is the barrier for people, normal people, who want to be entrepreneurs, who have a little bit of brain, innovation, products, services, yet they cannot enter because of the barrier that we create with good intention. So we have to revisit this creature that we created a long time back with good intention, whether these creatures are still something that is relevant, something that we want, or something that we want them to reform, to be hived off, to be spin off, for people to, be able to participate in the economy. Otherwise, they get tired, not fed up. Thank you.
So, to the GLCs who are thinking about sponsoring us,
Good intention.
yes, good intention. It was Dr. Sufyan who said that, not me. So, okay.
I forward.
Okay. I want to open it up to the audience to ask questions as well. But the last question that I want to ask to Dato' Nur Jazlan is, all this require political will. The theme of the day is where is the leadership. Everything that Razin mentioned just now requires leadership, especially when he talks about unilateral liberalization. I think the reality is, in order for politicians and political parties to show leadership, let's cut to the chase, they need to be comfortable that if they reform, they do not lose power. And I think if we expect politicians to introduce reform knowing that they lose power, then we are thinking in the wrong direction. So my question to you, I suppose, is how do you think we can make reform something sexy that will attract votes to those promoting those reforms?
Why do I come to all these forums? Knowing I'll be the only one in the whole room that's going to defend the government's position. What is unique about Malaysia is our formation involved lots of institutions. The royalty, my God, our first Prime Minister was royalty. And then Tun Razak, also, the elite of the country, formed the country, led the government, introduced innovation, and today we are being led by one of the descendants of a previous prime minister. But the elite no longer lead the country. Why do I say that? Because if you look at the distribution of Malaysia today, in terms of political power, UMNO is still very strong. It has 88 seats, a single party, okay? So it's not easy to remove UMNO. And then you've got parties in Sabah and Sarawak, which make up the coalition. We still have a very healthy majority. But when somebody like who is non-elite, like Tun Abdullah Badawi, tried to introduce major reforms, what happened to him? People threw him out. So how do you expect the leader of UMNO to respond? You move forward. How far do you move forward before you get punished again? Who punished Tun Abdullah Badawi in 2008? It was the elite. It was the people in urban areas. He did a good thing, but he was punished for it. Now you have a person from an elite background, Dato' Sri Najib, trying to make the changes. He actually put programs, stated programs, ETP, GTP, laid it out, the plans. And then when he wants to implement it, the general public doesn't accept him. And I'm not even talking about threats from within the party. I'm talking about you guys. How much patience do you have to give him the opportunity? Don't get me wrong. I am not defending him. In fact, I've also lost patience with him. That's why if you read my blogs, you read my articles, it's in Malay, but you can use Google Translate. you can still get the venom that that I write about him sometimes. But think about what you want. If you want the opposition, look at how they're going to govern. So I'm not going to belabor on this point. I'm just saying, if you are the elite, you take the responsibility. You lead the country. You be responsible. Datin Farida and her group, I value your contribution, although it's done after you retired. that is the accusation that's been thrown against the group, because you only talk about it after you retired, after you've gained all the benefits. But what about younger people like I know I'll irritate a lot of people here, but but what about the medium age people like myself, and then the younger ones like Saiful?
Still young.
How are we going to basically use our intellect, our position, our influence to basically change things? But then you don't also give us the patience to stick with us to make the changes. So this is the issue about Malaysia going forward. The whole trick of UMNO, which people don't realize, is get the economy going. Yeah. You had your chance in town. The whole UMNO's trick all these years has always been get the economy going. That's why what Professor Sally said, Mahathir was smart. He tried to do interventionist policies with HICOM, and then he saw it's better if he fits Malaysia into the global supply chain and liberalize on our own. And we were successful. And for that period where we had economic prosperity, people forgot about all these issues. I think Farida was giving a long laundry list of issues, religious issues, racial issues. People forgot because they were busy making money. Now, the problem, as Professor Sally has said, which I agree totally, as I said, I agree totally with his presentation, is we've reached that limit. How to move up to the next stage? This is where the government has failed. Because we have not educated the people on how to cope with the changes, how to prepare ourselves for the next stage, how to close the gap between the educational or intellectual capacity between races, and also how to close the inequality, the income gap. And this backlash now is what's holding the Prime Minister back. I mean, you can ask him yourself. I don't know whether he will talk about it, because he seems to be very quiet nowadays, But I'm sure this is one of the things that is holding him back. Now, going to the future, if you ask me what I would suggest that if the whole political situation of the whole world is going towards a situation where that Dr. Sofian mentioned just now about government doesn't matter anymore. Institutions will go ahead, business will go ahead. So we don't need governments, but actually we do need governments. But we don't need leaders that take too long. That is what we need at the moment, because our time span is too short now. 3 years. We give chief executives of companies 3 years to turn things around before they are kicked out. And in politics, that is happening too. Unfortunately, our parliamentary term is 5 years, so that's the inconsistency there. But so I would think that Malaysia is going to head into a situation where we actually become like Japan. Yes, the ruling party still stays in power, LDP, because like I said, UMNO is still quite powerful in that sense for the moment. But the Prime Minister will go through musical chairs. Okay, we give you 1 year, 2 years, you can't perform, get out, change new one, because it doesn't matter. We do that until we find somebody that is honest, like what Dr. Sufyan said, and has the interests of the country at heart. I don't mind going through that situation. Probably will give me a chance to become Prime Minister. Because under the current system, the institutionalized system of UMNO, I will never make it, especially at my age. But under this musical chair system, I think, yeah, why not? I'll support that. Thank you.
Dia sempat campaign juga tu. Okay, Razin, you had something to say?
Yes, as it was a fascinating discussion, and as I was listening to the other three panelists, my mind went back again to Sri Lanka. So, let me provide you with a dystopian example here. All this trade stuff has been on the back burner for me the last few years, because I've been doing lots of road trips, having a great deal of fun, and writing a book on Sri Lanka, which is not an academic book. And among the things I've learned is that there was a time when Ceylon then had a golden period after independence. Not a drop of blood was shed. The brown man from Oxford took over from the white man from Cambridge, which was similar here, of course. And in this atmosphere of complacency, in 1956, the new Prime Minister, S.W.R.D. Bandaranaike, played the race card with something called the Sinhala-only policy. So, replace Malay and Islam with Sinhala and Buddhist. You have some similarities. And so you had racial politics getting ever more noxious, and at the same time, the economy being deliberalized. So the wealth engine sputtered and then stalled. And both coming together contributed to not just a much poorer economy, relatively speaking, but disastrous race relations that led to a civil war. Because what happened with both coming together was that you had a proletariat of Sinhala graduates coming out of university with no jobs to go to come the 1970s. And you had the same thing going on up in Jaffna with the Tamils. And on both sides there was extremism, Sinhala Buddhism on the one side and Tamil nationalism on the other side. And come 1983, that led to a civil war that lasted 25 years. The war was won. The ethnic issue wasn't resolved. You had a further poisoning of ethnic relations. And now Sri Lanka has a new opening with thankfully the last dictator being removed and a new government in place. But, of course, Malaysia is very far from these circumstances as of now. But it just goes to show, if in an atmosphere of complacency, you think the economic engine will just continue running nicely while you play your politics, that really bad things can happen on both fronts, and they come together and snowball, and you end up with, as I said, dystopia. And that's obviously a shadow of the future that you want to avoid.
Yeah, that's a very pertinent point. But, and I think we do have quite a lot to learn from the Sri Lankan experience. But before I open up to the floor, Dr. Sifan, you wanted to say something just now?
Yeah. I would like to draw my experience working in the least developed countries. I spent about 10 days in a month in Myanmar at the moment, making a new investment policy for Myanmar. I think this is political economy. It's not economics, not real politics. But one thing that is lacking in this country, with a very high percentage of middle class, urban people, educated, is the participation, the ability to participate in the decision-making process. Transparency and consultation is, I think, is quite lacking. When the government draws, not really the government, say someone draws up a new law, is being done inside the bureaucracy, ended up with the AG chambers, go to parliament, being bulldozed throughout the midnight, and the next day you have a new law. But the experience I have in Myanmar, I think it's very it opens a lot of possibilities if we can learn from this new development. After 50 years of closed economy under military rule, all of a sudden they are learning to become a democracy, and they learn from a 0 point on the empty canvas. And we have part of the engagement. You know, we draft the policy, we table to NGOs, we table to business community, people participate. We even go and see Aung San Suu Kyi, who is the leader of the opposition, and the government allowed us and encouraged us to approach the opposition. We went, we spent 2 hours with Aung San Suu Kyi, discussed with her about the new investment policy. So we had consultation last week with the NGOs. Various NGOs came up with new ideas. But one thing I like about their approach, which we do not have here, is when we do consultation, NGOs, the opposition come with open mind, with rational brain. This is what we lack here. Seriously, when we go and see the NGOs, when we go and see the opposition here, from my experience in dealing with the TPPA, they bang table, no rational reasoning, no data. In our consultation, Aung San Suu Kyi engaged a legal firm to come up with a 12-page letter to the government of Myanmar and explaining her position. I do not know. I'm not a politician, but I do not know whether Dato' Nur Jazlan has that experience, whether in any event, whether a leader of an opposition party in Malaysia would come out